This week's winners of the Cromwell Pool Award were Alex Carson for round 1 and Herbie Finkelberg for round 2. Of course, we are at the California Speedway this week instead of the Las Vegas Auto Ring. Crystal City Casino had to withdraw its sponsorship of the Las Vegas race due to its ongoing legal problems, and so the series relocated the race with backing from Karl's Superstores. And I understand that the Karl's racing drivers are being offered a huge bonus if they can win today. Well, I don't think they should be making plans to spend that bonus quite yet, because that team only has one win in the 11 years that it's existed. Moving on, the '09 car for Griesberger Racing, normally driven by Phil Summers, is not on the entry list this week. Apparently, Griesberger has been having some budget issues, and we believe Griesberger may be making more cutbacks as the year goes on, but we'll have to see what happens. Some people are even saying that the Griesberger team may just dissolve completely, but I wouldn't be entirely surprised if Griesberger went on to sponsor a car fielded by a different team. In fact, I think I may have seen some Griesberger people talking to Lucas Sweeney a few weeks ago. I know the A-team has certainly been a little strapped for cash this year. Cisco hasn't been quite covering their bills enough. Now, on to the first round. This is Alex Carson's second pole of the season. His first came at the Houston Supercell, which is a larger oval, very much like this one. Carson gets a pretty good start over Laura Sires, but look at Tiffany Matthews, who jumped out to the outside lane, trying to make something work up there, but it's not quite working out for her. Carson now comes under attack from his teammate Lucas Sweeney, who we were just talking about. Sweeney is driving his father's signature solid yellow scheme, as this is not one of the races that Cisco is paying for. Sweeney can't make the bottom work, and he's got a pit at the end of the first lap. We believe he picked up a puncture on the pace laps, but Sweeney would be saved from going a lap down by a caution that occurred coming off of turn 4. Watch Casey Campbell in the 10. She's going to slide up into Eric Jackson, coming off of 4, and then bounces into Philip Borland, sending the both of them spinning. Nicole Moreno in the 56 clips the 89 as well. I'm surprised that wasn't a much bigger wreck. Both Nicole Moreno and Philip Borland would be done for the day, as well as Jeff Little, who blows up on lap 3 under caution. This will be Little's last race in the Elite Series for a while, and I'm not sure he wanted to end it like this. Carson continues to lead on the restart. Laura Sires jumps up to the outside to try to make something happen there, but as we saw from Tiffany Matthews, that isn't the greatest idea. And then we would get another caution on lap 6. Holden Roberts is running very slowly. He then pulls into Scott Morales. She knocks him into the path of Casey Campbell. This takes both of them into the wall, as well as Eric Jackson, Calvin Arailer, and Mark Bielski, who is driving the number 85 Team Empire car this week. And apparently in Bielski's case, he didn't even sign up for the Drive the Dream contest himself. His wife did it for him in an effort to get him out of the house. Jason Bates blew up under this caution. So much for Bates' chance at that bonus. He had a pretty good qualifying run, but unfortunately Bates has been winless in his whole career. Here is Kevin Monroe coming after Alex Carson after the restart, but Bobby Porteau decides to make it 3 wide, but Porteau can't keep up with their momentum, leaving Monroe and Carson to duke it out for the lead. Monroe, the defending series champion, is showing a lot more speed in this race than he has this season. Although, to be fair, most of Monroe's poor performances have been due to crashes and poor reliability. I'm sure he'd be a lot higher in the standings if his cars would stop blowing up. And that's one of the reasons why Monroe said that M&J is going to be downsizing at the end of the year and or merging with Riggs Motorsports. All of the blown engines that those teams have been having is simply costing them too much money. Bill Tissum was one of the several drivers who received a penalty in the aftermath of the messy Albuquerque Twin 100s. He was penalized 25 points for wrecking Herbie Finkelberg on the second lap of round 2. Tissum, who went on to win the race, was very apologetic after the incident and even offered to pay Finkelberg's repair bill. We can't confirm if Finkelberg took him up on the offer, but I'm sure that earned him quite a bit of respect from his peers. And behind Tissum, Rachel Rainsford and Lane Cranston are duking it out for 6th, with Makoto Yamada in the 22 looking on. Rainsford has been on a roll lately. She's grabbed 4 top 10 finishes in a row after a slow start to the season, and Lane Cranston has also been picking up quite a bit of momentum after a disastrous start to his season. I'm very surprised that Cranston and MT Motorsports have been very fast without any apparent sponsorship. I don't see any decals on that car aside from the contingency panel. Their funding has got to be on the same level as Team Burrs, but MT Motorsports is doing so much more. The Math Motors Pie car, driven by Vijay Pashanda this week, has been struggling quite a bit in the most recent races. I'm kind of disappointed to be seeing that, especially after the great start to the year that team has had. Vijay Pashanda has brought just enough financial boost for them to run the whole schedule. Hopefully this streak of bad luck will be over for them soon and they can start competing for top 5s again. Nick Asher and Nick Howard have a very close call on lap 16. Asher gets into the back of Howard and puts him onto the apron, although Nick Howard is able to merge back into traffic without a problem. Nick Asher is coming off of 2 11th place finishes in a row, but he's not doing himself any favorites with that maneuver. And then the very next lap, Asher has another run-in, this time with Greg Woodard. Woodard tries desperately to hang onto the car and goes into the wall. Woodard has some very significant damage on that 41 car, and he'll have to bring it into the pits and lose a couple of laps doing so. But that could have ended up so much worse. He was actually smoking his tires as he was sliding. I'm not sure what Asher's been trying to prove in these last couple of laps, but he's almost caused 2 wrecks. Let's see what happens. Oh, it actually, Woodard came down a little bit, so I take that back. They were both trying to go for the same spot, and it just turned out badly for Woodard. By lap 20, Alex Carson has pulled out to a very big lead over Kevin Monroe and Bill Tissum. Carson comes in to make his first green flag pit stop on lap number 28. Uh-oh, do I see smoke from the 93? Oh no, Alex Carson has blown his engine in the pit lane. He was on his way to dominating the race, but then SAR unreliability strikes again. But back to this cycle of pit stops. Kevin Monroe and Bill Tissum come in on the next lap. Eric Jackson and Casey Campbell are staying out for much longer than most of their rivals. They were both involved in the first 2 accidents, and so when they pitted to repair their damage, they capitalized on the opportunity to take tires and fuel as well. And it looks like they might be hoping for another caution to put them back on the same cycle as the leaders. And they would get that caution as Calvin Arailer is running much slower than the rest of the field. He throws the block on Vijay Pashanda, who then turns him. Arailer bounces off the wall and back up the track. Look out! Nick Asher slams into him. Oh dear. What do you make of that? Did Pashanda turn to the right? Well, let's go on board the pie car and see what happened. Oh, Arailer's going really slow. And okay, what was that all about? Arailer moves over, but Pashanda still has all the room in the world to get by him, and he just turned right into him. I don't know how that could have sparked such an outburst from Pashanda. The entire field pitted under this caution. Kevin Monroe is at the front of the field, but Casey Campbell and Eric Jackson's pit strategy has trapped several cars a lap down, and a number of them get great starts in an effort to get their laps back. But then we got another caution immediately after the restart as Rick Tyler gets into the back of his teammate Libby Bell and turns Libby Bell hard into the inside wall. That was a big impact for the 24 car. She hit the wall with the left side of the car at about 200 miles an hour. The race had to be red flagged for about 20 minutes as the safety crew tended to Libby Bell. We were rather concerned about this wreck, although Bell did hit the wall with the left front of the car as opposed to hitting it straight on with the driver's side. And we know that Bell was awake and talking to the safety crews, so that's a very good sign right there. Tiffany Matthews got shuffled to the front after most of the leaders made pit stops once the race got back under yellow flags. Among some of the other drivers who didn't pit were Bobby Porteau, Makoto Yamada, and Lane Cranston. But Matthews is rather boxed in on this restart, and here comes Bobby Porteau. He may not have fresh tires, but it's no secret that he's got a bit more power under the hood of that 74 car than Matthews does. Lane Cranston follows suit while Matthews gets stuck behind the lapped number 9 car of Lawrence Burr. Oh, Matthews really doesn't have too many options here as she's losing positions left and right. And Yamada, who's still right behind her, tried something similar last week. He led the field after not pitting, and that didn't work out too well for him either. And you saw Matthews make a little bit of contact with Namimura in the 39. I think she was trying to avoid the 41 of Greg Woodard, who just went into the wall. Cranston is still running second after everything gets settled down. With 20 laps to go, Cranston is on his way to his best career finish after a horrible start to the season, where he crashed and blew up left and right. And as we mentioned before, he is doing all this without any sponsorship. Oh, but now he's getting competition from the much more well-funded Rachel Rainsford in the 171 car. With Gravity Racing downsizing at the end of the year, we all thought that Rainsford would get canned until she started getting a whole bunch of top 10 finishes. And Kevin Monroe is still in contention. Car 63 has not blown up yet, and he has just gotten by the 114 for third. Monroe did make a pit stop under that last caution, so he's got much fresher tires than the other drivers up in this lead group. So Monroe would eventually clear Rachel Rainsford and then come after Bobby Porteau for the lead. This is probably one of the fastest cars Monroe's had all season, but I don't think he can relax yet. He probably knows that too, but if his car hangs on, then it's probably smooth sailing for him. And then Porteau would fall victim to Rachel Rainsford. I guess he used up his stuff trying to extend his lead, which obviously didn't quite work out so well for him. But Porteau is still trying to fend off the 171 car. Porteau and Rainsford made their last pit stops on the same lap, but again, it looks like that Rachel Rainsford's car is handling much better than the 74 at the moment. By the way, Bill Tissom in the 07 is not on the lead lap, but he's certainly fighting to try to get his lap back. I'm not sure if that's the best idea with so few laps left in the race. If he did get in front of the leaders and the caution came out, he would have quite a bit of work to do on the restart, so I don't think it's worth it for him to fight like this. You probably saw Porteau successfully fend off the 171, but for just a few moments, as Rainsford now makes another charge at the 74. And it looks like she's going to have a much easier time clearing him this time around. But Porteau is still not giving up. I think this is one of the best fights we've seen the whole race. I saw Rainsford slide up the track a little bit. I think he may have taken a little bit of air off her spoiler. Side by side down the backstretch, I think Porteau is going to have the advantage through 3 and 4. But we've seen that inside line be a little bit unpredictable. He does clear her, though. Porteau, of course, is the 2010 Series champion, and he already has 2 wins this season for the Mitchell & Sons team. He took last year off to drive in the TM Master Cup Series, which wasn't as successful as a campaign, so he came back to ARLA. Rachel Rainsford is also an ex-Master Cup driver, but she has been driving in this series for a few years, and she is still searching for her first win. But judging by the speed that she's shown, I don't think her first win is too far off. And now she's coming after Bobby Porteau once again, as we are approaching the white flag. We apologize for neglecting our leader, Kevin Monroe, for you Monroe fans, but this is the best battle on the track. Rachel Rainsford and Bobby Porteau, the ex-Master Cup drivers, duking it out for second place, and Rainsford gets a big run through the corner. That looked like an ambitious move that was either going to stick or they were both going to crash. But Kevin Monroe won 2 races and the championship last year, but he's been having horrible luck up until this point. Coming off of turn 4, something finally goes right for Kevin Monroe, and he will take the win at California. M&J Racing's first win of the season after the first 12 races were plagued by smoke and shrapnel. Rachel Rainsford held off Bobby Porteau in the final lap to score her best finish of the year. You have Jenny Kuznetsov and Todd Stater, 4th and 5th. Stater is really establishing himself as someone who could potentially be involved in the title hunt. Tiffany Matthews hangs on to 6th after staying out on the final restart. The Eicholtz Autosport teammates Jacob Eicholtz and Ben Atkins finish in the top 10 together for the first time this season. Not to mention, top 10s have been very hard to come by for that team. Lane Cranston fell to 8th in the final laps, but that's still a great performance from the underfunded 114 operation. And then Makoto Yamada finishes in 10th. And now on to the second round. It's a Speed Vision front row. Herbie Finkelberg on pole and David Krikorian in second. Zachary Zins jumps to the outside, trying to make it 3 wide for the lead on the first lap. But watch the 57 of Ashley Tucker. She gets a bit of a bump draft from her teammate Leslie Riggs, and Tucker takes the early lead coming off of turn 2. Leslie Riggs trying to make a run at Herbie Finkelberg for a second down the backstretch. Darren Grant is coming forward as well. What a great start for the 20 team and the rookie. But watch the run that Herbie Finkelberg gets on the 50, coming through turns 3 and 4. He makes his way to the outside of Riggs, and he will take the second spot back at the line. But let's see what Leslie Riggs has got for him. As we approach turn number 1, Darren Grant slides into 4th, and here comes Riggs. It looks like she's going to possibly clear the 96. No, not quite yet, and she gives him plenty of room coming off of 2. She seems to be racing very hard early on, but she knows that she's got to give people room, otherwise it'll end badly for the both of them. Finkelberg still seems to be very good in 3 and 4. We haven't seen too many people make a huge run on the outside in that corner, and he will clear Riggs. Gary D'Souza was removed from the 149 car this week to make way for Ramsey Cockiner, making his first ARLA Elite Series start, and he is currently running in a respectable 22nd place. The former adult film star turned race car driver is certainly looking to rise to the top of the motorsports world. Cockiner is also an iColts development driver, and we believe that he will be one of the iColts cars for a rookie campaign in 2013. Helen Rogers, the sister of Tiffany Matthews, is also making her first ARLA Elite Series start this week in place of Mac Ryland in the 86X. Ryland had to step out of the car due to a family emergency, although we believe he will be back at Twin Ring Motegi in a month or so. Rogers has been driving a bit of everything recently, trying to find a permanent home, and she is not doing too bad tonight, running a few positions in front of Ramsey Cockiner. First caution came on lap 7 as Barton Sandy piles into the back of the slow as ever Derek Dudding. Ramsey Cockiner gets involved as well. Scott Dollitz and Harry S. Sinola pile into the 999 car as well. I was wondering how long it was going to be before Dudding caused trouble of some kind. Todd Darshik piled into the back of Ramsey Cockiner, who had nowhere to go, and neither did Radarshik. Radarshik kind of committed to the top, and Cockiner was right there. Ashley Tucker blows up as she is coming out of the pits. A very promising start to the race for Tucker goes up in smoke. I think she should probably get out of the way. She's clearly holding everyone else up. And there she goes, moving up onto the track, but it looks like a lot of people don't know where she's going, and she doesn't know where everyone else is going. That was kind of hairy. Benji Flynn came out of the pits with the lead of the race. Leslie Riggs is second, and Kiriki Hitsuno is third. Hitsuno has won at this track before in the Pacific Racing Championship open wheel cars, and Flynn competed in a drifting competition with his teammate Scott Dollitz at this track on Wednesday. They were both in the same run, and unfortunately, they both crashed. The next caution came out right after the restart as Herbie Finkelberg slides up into Jennifer Goodwin, triggering a small pileup. Jessica Graham gets turned into Rybert Scott. Jason Teller, David Krikorian, and Dumo pile in. It's very unfortunate for Speed Vision. After sweeping the front row, they get caught up in this mess. And this is especially unfortunate for Finkelberg, who's been having so much bad luck lately. And Jessica Graham gets caught up in yet another mess. She finally came through with an 8th place finish at Buffalo, but then she's gone back to her usual bad luck. Kiriki Hitsuno is now up to second. From what we understand, MRD Motorsports owner Tom Delgado is very close to releasing just about his whole team after a season of underachievement and wrecked cars. We're not sure if Delgado is serious, but his whole team ought to be a little bit more motivated tonight. Well, if Delgado does follow through on his threat, I know that Kiriki Hitsuno's got a few connections back in Japan, and that tour is coming up next on the calendar. Benji Flynn continues to lead after the restart. By the way, Edwin Schwartzlowski in the 66 is a lap down after he slapped the wall and had to pit for repairs. We then got another caution immediately after the restart as Rents Brown pushes up into points leader Ebenezer Quiggles, and another big crash ensues off at 2. Kyle Gaffigan gets jacked up into the air. Allie Riggs, Bob Steffens, and Tyson Lautenschlager are involved. Here is Kyle Gaffigan getting caught up after team owner Delgado warned him and the rest of his teammates not to get into an accident. And look how that turned out. Rybert Scott is going to go out of the race as well. Oh, and Tyson Lautenschlager piles into the 37 for some reason. Jim Moore and Great Lakes Motorsports acquired enough funding to go for the rest of the season, and look what they do with that opportunity. They pile into this wreck. But again, points leader Ebenezer Quiggles Jr. was involved in this wreck, and for the second week in a row, he will go out of the race. Well, so much for that big points lead of his. And now Kiriki Hitsuno has blown up under caution, so both of the Atsuro Technologies cars are out of the race. Darren Grant is the leader on the restart with Joseph Howard, one of the surviving MRD cars, right behind him. But look at Zachary Zins. He makes a big run on the bottom, and he will sweep into the lead without a problem. Michael Madrigal in 4th is also trying to make a run at the bottom. But Darren Grant is doing a very good job so far tonight. The rookie has been quietly pulling out some good finishes this season, but this is the first time that we've really seen a big performance out of him. Jim Hayes started in the back of the field, and he was penalized 50 points for causing a pileup in the first round at Albuquerque, in which he took himself and Le Gruel out of the race while they were battling for the lead. And unlike Bill Tissam, Hayes wasn't very remorseful after the incident, so I think he kind of deserved a stiffer penalty than Tissam. Well, Hayes has been keeping his nose clean so far tonight, so I think he might have learned his lesson, and he is currently running in the 7th position. Kellen Rogers has also improved greatly since the start of the race. She is currently 9th. Attrition may have helped, but she is certainly running at the same pace as the lead cars. I would look out for this 86X car later on, although she is currently trying to fend off Benji Flynn and Andy Pearson, two of the more experienced drivers, and they get by her, although Rogers is fighting back against the two, so she is not about to sit back and just log laps. Zachary Zins has pulled out to a comfortable lead over Darren Grant. Zins landed the ride at A1 Racing with his, Seek the Truth sponsorship, which lists a number of conspiracy theories on his car. They're accusing Alex Carson of being a robot and ARLA for having their cars release chemtrails, among other things. Zins himself is equally as eccentric. He has stated in numerous recent interviews that he thinks that everyone else is out to kill him. Maybe that's why he's driving so fast and trying to get away from everyone tonight. Well, whatever his motivation is, it's working for him right now. Zins may have a good-sized lead, but Leslie Riggs is currently one of the fastest cars on the track. She is now trying to run down Joseph Howard for 3rd. The last time we ran at this track, Leslie Riggs won the race. And that was all the way back in 2008. That's right, so it looks like Riggs still knows her way around this track, even though it's been so long, and we have a completely different car than we did back then. She's making mincemeat of Joseph Howard right now, and it didn't take her much longer to run down Darren Grant for 2nd. Riggs is absolutely flying right now, and she's not going to have much trouble getting by the 20 either. But before Riggs can make a run at Zins makes a green flag pit stop on lap number 37. Unfortunately, a few laps later, Kellen Rogers blows up after a great debut performance from her. Leslie Riggs is staying out for much longer than the rest of the leaders. I think Riggs is hoping for a caution so that she can pit without setting herself back too much. Oh, but I don't think she wants to be part of the caution as David Krikorian gets into her a little bit. A few other people seem to be on the same strategy as Riggs, such as Jim Hayes and Benji Flynn. Riggs also pitted a few laps later than some of these leaders who came in a few laps ago, such as Zachary Zins. So keep in mind that Riggs can go for a little bit longer. Riggs finally pits on lap number 44 along with Jim Hayes and Benji Flynn, but Bob Steffens stays out for 1 lap longer than Riggs. Steffens was involved in an accident earlier in the race, and he's still shaping up to have a very good run. When everything cycles out, Zachary Zins is still the leader by about 3 seconds over Darren Grant, and Zins is going slightly faster than Grant, so I'd say his lead is pretty comfortable at this point. Joseph Howard is quite a ways back in 3rd. So far, this has been one of Howard's best performances since he won at Daytona. He's had a number of other good runs towards the beginning of the season, but then he hit a bit of a slump. Benji Flynn pitted on the same lap as Leslie Riggs, and he was behind her, but he came out in front of her. Flynn is currently 4th with Steffens in 5th, but Leslie Riggs would once again be the fastest car on the track. She quickly dispatched Steffens, and now she is coming after Benji Flynn. Although Riggs is currently about 9 seconds behind the leader, Zachary Zins, so she's got quite a bit of work ahead of her if she wants to catch him. It didn't take her too much longer to catch up to 3rd place Joseph Howard, and you see behind her that Bob Steffens has now moved into 5th. His tires are slightly fresher than Benji Flynn's, And Riggs now makes mincemeat of Joseph Howard, and I'm sure she's driving as fast as she possibly can to catch up to second place Darren Grant. But back to your leader, Zachary Zins. A1 Racing has been competing in this series since 2010 with a number of different drivers, but they have not won a race. Until tonight, Zachary Zins dominates the final laps to take his first ARLA Elite Series victory. Darren Grant brings home his best career finish. Leslie Riggs, what a charge that she made through the final laps, but she simply didn't have enough time to catch the leaders. Bob Steffens brings home fourth for Big Bunny Racing, a very good result for that team. Steffens is still winless in the series, but I'd say he is one of the more underrated drivers out there. Benji Flynn ends his week on a very positive note, bringing home 5th place after crashing in that drift competition on Wednesday. Joseph Howard starts to turn his luck around with a 6th place finish. I'm sure team owner Tom Delgado has got to be happy with that after the Atsuro drivers fell out. His teammate Jim Hayes also finished 9th after a very clean race. Michael Madrigal finishes a rather quiet 7th, Andy Pearson is 8th, and then Taylor Brillin rounds out the top 10, the first car 1 lap down. And now here are the point standings leaving California. Quiggles' lead is still evaporating over Laura Cyrus. Cyrus is now down to just 27 points behind Quiggles, and Yevgeny Kuznetsov is now just 65 points behind. But there's still quite a bit of distance down to 4th place, Eric Jackson. Leslie Riggs is back up to 5th. Todd Stater is now up to 6th place. Stater has certainly been coming forward in a hurry. Bigsbyfoot is 7th. Alex Carson is still 8th despite failing to finish, and it is a tie for 9th between Bobby Porto and Rip Tyler. Tiffany Matthews is 11th. Darren Grant has made his way up to 12th. Andy Pearson, 13th. David Krikorian, 14th. Casey Campbell, 15th. Michael Madrigal, 16th. Rybert Scott is 17th. We have actually left Rybert Scott out of these points charts for the past couple of weeks. We apologize to Scott and Evans Motorsports for that little error. Ashley Tucker has fallen to 19th after failing to finish. And welcome to the top 20, Rachel Rainsford and Zachary Zins.